Up until that point, my mother-in-law's behavior had been manageable. Nothing warm, nothing kind, but mild enough that I didn't let it touch my excitement. Compared to what she had put me through years earlier, her recent remarks felt almost harmless, distant, predictable. And when my daughter announced her wedding, I decided I wouldn't let old shadows steal that joy from me. I told myself she no longer had power over me. I was driving home that afternoon, already smiling to myself, thinking about the dress. I'd been planning to try it on again, just once more, and maybe practice a few dance steps my husband and I were going to do with the newlyweds at the reception. Nothing extravagant, just something joyful, something ours. The dress was olive green, elegant, understated, and deeply personal. I'd worked extra shifts to buy it, 10 long on-call nights added to my schedule, because I wanted that moment to feel right. Walking my daughter down the aisle wasn't just ceremonial. It was something she had asked for, something we had talked about quietly, late at night, long before the guest list or the flowers were chosen. When I got home, I went straight to my bedroom. I opened the closet. The box wasn't there. At first, I didn't panic. I told myself I must have moved it. I'd been distracted lately, too many details, too many emotions. Weddings do that. Life does that. I checked the shelf again, then the floor, then behind the coats. Nothing. I moved faster, too fast, pulling clothes aside, kneeling down, opening drawers that had nothing to do with dresses. I opened the storage bin, empty. I checked the guest room closet, nothing there either. My stomach tightened. Maybe I'd left it in my daughter's room, I thought. That made sense. I'd been helping her organize things last week. I went upstairs, opened her closet, checked under the bed. Nothing. That's when the discomfort settled in. Not panic yet, but that quiet, unsettling feeling that tells you something is wrong. I stood there for a moment, breathing slowly, telling myself not to jump to conclusions. Someone could have moved it. Maybe my husband. Maybe I had without remembering. I walked back downstairs, and that's when I saw her. My mother-in-law was in the kitchen, standing by the counter, calm and composed, exactly the person I least wanted to see in that moment. I didn't say anything. I went straight into the living room and started checking behind the couch, under the side table, anywhere a box could have been placed temporarily. "Looking for something, dear?" she asked lightly. "Yes," I murmured, barely looking up. I kept searching. "I'm sorry?" she said. I didn't quite catch that. Something about the way she asked, the interest, the patience, made my skin prickle. She wasn't just being polite, she was paying attention. "I'm looking for my green dress, the one I bought to walk my daughter down the aisle." My daughter's name, Aaliyah, seemed to hang in the air for a second longer than it should have. That's when my mother-in-law let out a soft sigh. "Oh," she said slowly, with a tone that carried quiet superiority. "That one." My heart dropped. "Yes," I said, straightening up. "The olive green dress, with the beaded details on the front. Have you seen it?" She smiled. "Yes, dear, I have." Relief washed over me for exactly half a second. "And where is it?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for her mug, took a slow sip, and then said, almost pleasantly, "I gave it to Maria." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" I said. "My maid," she clarified. She was absolutely radiant when she tried it on. It's nice to see how happy these people get over something so simple. Simple. The word echoed in my head. That dress cost $800. It cost exhaustion, time away from home, 10 extra shifts. Nothing about it, or about me, was simple. "You gave my dress away?" I said, my voice suddenly louder than I intended. She tilted her head, looking almost amused. "Yes," she replied calmly. "You weren't using it yet." Something inside me snapped into clarity. Without asking me? I said. She finally looked annoyed. I don't see why that's necessary. You're not even wearing it yet, and honestly, you should be grateful. Charity builds character. My hands curled into fists. That dress was for my daughter's wedding, I said, for walking her down the aisle. She waved a hand dismissively. Oh, please, she said, you're making this into a much bigger deal than it needs to be. I was still trying to steady my breathing when the front door opened. Keys, voices, footsteps. My husband walked in first, followed by his sister and his father. They were laughing lightly, the way people do after routine appointments. Nothing serious, nothing heavy. His father had just come back from a regular checkup, the kind that reassures everyone that life is still moving along as expected. The normalcy of it all made my chest tighten even more. They stopped the moment they noticed the tension. "What's going on?" my husband asked, glancing between me and his mother. Before I could answer, she did. "She's upset," my mother-in-law said loudly with a dismissive wave of her hand. "Over a dress." My sister-in-law frowned. "What dress?" "The green one," my mother-in-law replied. "The one she bought for the wedding. I gave it away." There was a pause. "You gave it away?" my husband repeated. "Yes," she said firmly, "to my maid. The girl was thrilled. Honestly, I don't see the problem." I felt my face burn. "That dress was for walking my daughter down the aisle," I said, my voice shaking now despite my efforts. My mother-in-law scoffed. "Oh, stop," she said. "You're acting like I burned the thing. You weren't even wearing it yet." "That's not the point," I said. "You had no right." That's when she turned fully toward me, her voice rising just enough to draw everyone in. "You are being petty and selfish, getting worked up over fabric when other people actually need things." I heard my sister-in-law inhale sharply. "Mom," she said carefully, stepping forward, "you could have given it away after the wedding, not before." My mother-in-law shot her a look. "So now I need permission to be generous?" she snapped. "This is exactly what I mean. She's dramatic. Always has been." She looked back at me, her eyes cold. "You should be ashamed of yourself, making a scene like this." I felt something inside me sink. Not just hurt, but disbelief. The way she said it, so certain, so comfortable, humiliating me in front of everyone. My husband stepped closer to me then, placing a hand on my arm. "Hey," he said quietly. "Calm down, love. It's okay." I looked at him. "I can buy you another one," he continued. "I'll work extra shifts if I have to." I swallowed hard. "There isn't another one," I said softly. That was the last one in my size. He hesitated, clearly unprepared for that answer. Before anyone could say anything else, my father-in-law cleared his throat. "This isn't the time," he said gruffly. He didn't look at me, not really. He took my mother-in-law by the arm instead and gently but firmly guided her toward the door. "Let's go," he muttered. "We're leaving."
she protested under her breath, still shaking her head as if she were the wronged one, but she let herself be pulled along. As they stepped outside, my mother-in-law turned back one last time. "Unbelievable," she said. "All this over a dress?" The door closed behind them. The house fell silent. And standing there, surrounded by people who had just witnessed me being reduced to something small and unreasonable, I realized something with painful clarity. The dress was gone, but what hurt more was how easily she had taken my moment, and how many people had let her. After they left, the house didn't feel quiet. It felt hollow. My sister-in-law hugged me before she walked out. My husband locked the door. My father-in-law didn't look back. And suddenly, it was just me. I went upstairs without saying anything. I didn't slam doors. I didn't cry right away. I just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the closet, the empty space where the box had been. I kept replaying her voice. "You weren't even wearing it yet." As if moments only mattered once they were visible, as if anticipation didn't count, as if intention had no value. My hands were still trembling. I opened my phone, scrolled. There it was, a picture I had taken the day I bought it. Olive green, soft beaded detail across the front, elegant but not loud, the kind of dress that didn't scream for attention, it simply held it. I remembered the saleswoman smiling at me. "It's the last one in your size," she had said. "If you love it, don't wait." I had laughed nervously. "I'll take it," I'd said, even though I knew it meant 10 extra on-call shifts, 10 long nights, 10 mornings coming home exhausted. Because walking Aaliyah down the aisle wasn't just symbolic, it was sacred. I scrolled through more photos, one of me holding the garment bag, one of the receipt, one blurry mirror picture I'd sent to my husband with the caption, "Worth it?" He had replied, "You look like her mother," and that had meant everything. The bedroom door opened softly. My husband stepped in. He looked tired. Not angry, not devastated, just overwhelmed. "Hey," he said gently. I didn't look up. He sat beside me. "It's just a dress," he started carefully. "We'll fix this. I'll buy you another one. I'll work extra if I have to." I let him finish. "There isn't another one," I said quietly. "It was limited, the last in my size." He paused. "Okay," he said after a moment, "then we'll find something better." Better. That word hit wrong. "This isn't about finding something better," I said. "It's about her thinking she could take it." He sighed. "I know she shouldn't have done that." Shouldn't have. Not had no right to. Not that was cruel. Just shouldn't have. "I'll talk to her tomorrow. We'll sort it out." Tomorrow. Sort it out. I nodded, because I didn't have the energy to explain that this wasn't something you sort. It was something you understand. And he didn't yet. After he left the room, I stared at my phone again. Then I pressed Aaliyah's name. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Mama," she said brightly. "Did you try it on?" My throat tightened. "No," I said. There was a pause. "What happened?" I told her. Not dramatically, not angrily, just fact by fact. By the time I finished, she wasn't breathing evenly anymore. "She did what?" Her voice wasn't shocked, it was furious. "I gave it to Maria," I repeated quietly. "For free?" Aaliyah demanded. "Yes." Silence. Then, "That's not about the dress." I closed my eyes. "I know." "No, Mama," she said sharply. "You don't. This isn't about fabric. It's about respect. She always does this. Always." I swallowed.
She didn't always. Yes, she did, Aaliyah cut in. You just minimized it. That stung, not because it was cruel, because it was true. She ruined your birthday that year, remember, when she accidentally invited people you don't even like? I remembered. She told you your promotion wasn't that impressive. I remember that too. She criticized your cooking every Thanksgiving. I inhaled slowly. She does this when you're happy, Aaliyah said. She waits, then she pokes, then she acts surprised when you bleed. The words landed heavy. I'm calling her, Aaliyah said suddenly. No, I said immediately. I'm calling her right now. Aaliyah, don't. She needs to hear it. This is your wedding, I said. I'm not turning it into drama. There was a sharp exhale on the other end. Your wedding? Aaliyah repeated. Mama, she just stole your moment. I said nothing. She didn't take something from me. She took something from you. The silence stretched between us. I always saw it. The way she talks to you, the way she acts like you're temporary. Temporary. There it was again. I thought once I got married, it would stop, Aaliyah admitted. I thought once there was a real milestone, she'd have to accept it. I almost laughed. She doesn't accept. She tolerates. Well, I don't, Aaliyah snapped. I could hear the protectiveness in her voice, the anger, the helplessness. I don't want you fighting her, I said gently. Not now. So what? We just let her win? Win. That word twisted something in my chest. No, I said slowly. We don't let her win. Then what do we do? I stared at the dark window, the reflection of my own face looking back at me. I'll handle it. How? I hesitated. I don't know yet. Another silence. I don't want you small on my wedding day, Aaliyah said quietly. I want you shining. That broke me more than anything else had. I will be, I promised. Promise? I promise. After we hung up, the house felt heavier than before. My husband was already asleep when I slid into bed. I stared at the ceiling. Her voice replayed in my mind. You're being petty. You should be grateful. It's just a dress. But beneath those words was something deeper, something deliberate. She hadn't acted impulsively. She was calm. Too calm. She knew exactly what she was doing. I turned onto my side.
Closed my eyes and opened them again. Sleep wouldn't come because one question kept circling back. How long had she known where that dress was? And why had she waited until now? By the time the sky began to lighten outside the window, I had stopped trying to sleep. And when my phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m., I didn't know yet that what I was about to see would make losing the dress feel small. Because it wasn't just gone. It had been used, and in a way I never could have imagined. The notification came at 7:12 a.m. I hadn't slept. I was already awake when my phone vibrated. It was a message from my sister-in-law. 4 words. You need to see this. Sorry. And a link. Instagram. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. Something inside me already knew. I just didn't know how bad it would be. The page loaded. Maria's profile. And there it was. The first image filled the screen. And for a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't a casual photo. It wasn't a quick mirror selfie. It was a professional studio shoot. Soft lighting, neutral backdrop, full makeup, hair styled perfectly. She was standing slightly angled toward the camera, confident,
poised, and she was wearing my dress. The olive green fell perfectly against her body. The beaded details caught the light beautifully. It fit her perfectly, too perfectly. My fingers trembled as I zoomed in. The waist had been taken in, the straps adjusted, the length hemmed. It had been tailored. My mother-in-law hadn't just given it away, she had arranged it. Below the photo, the caption read, "When God blesses you through generous people." Hashtags, blessed, new chapter, gift. Over 200 likes, comments everywhere. So beautiful. What a blessing. You look radiant. What a generous godmother. Godmother? I scrolled, and then I saw it. Tagged in the photo. My mother-in-law. I tapped the tag. Second slide. There she was, standing beside Maria, arms wrapped around her shoulders, smiling, radiant, the dress between them. And beneath the image, a comment from her. "You deserve it, querida. Women should lift each other up." Lift each other up. My stomach twisted. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't careless generosity. This was planned. The tailoring alone would have taken days, which meant she had given it away long before I searched the closet, long before she calmly sipped her coffee and told me she'd donated it. She had known exactly where it was, exactly what she was doing. The mattress shifted beside me. My husband stirred. "Love?" he murmured. I couldn't speak. I handed him the phone. He blinked at the screen. Confusion first, then recognition, then something darker. He swiped to the second photo. "She tailored it?" he whispered. I nodded.
He read the caption. Then his mother's comment. Silence filled the room. Not confusion anymore. Understanding. "This isn't charity," he said quietly. "No. This is cruelty." For the first time since the dress disappeared, he didn't offer to replace it, didn't say we'd fix it tomorrow. He just stared at the screen. "She posed for this," he said. "Yes. She wanted people to see." "Yes." He ran his hand through his hair. "This was planned." The words settled heavily between us. Planned. And then something colder formed in my chest. The post had gone up last night, an hour after she left our house, after calling me petty, after humiliating me in front of everyone, after acting as if it had all been harmless. She didn't just take the dress, she rewrote the story. In her version, she was generous, Maria was grateful, and I was unreasonable. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my sister-in-law. "She's been sending this privately." I froze. A screenshot followed, my mother-in-law forwarding the photo to relatives, with a message attached. "See, this is what real gratitude looks like." My pulse pounded. This wasn't public generosity. This was strategic positioning. She was building witnesses, building a narrative, building a version of me. And suddenly the humiliation in the kitchen made sense. She hadn't been surprised by my reaction. She had been waiting for it. Because now she could say, "Look at her. Look how dramatic she was over something so simple." My husband leaned back slowly. "This is malice," he said. "Yes. And I didn't know she was capable of this." I looked at him. "I did," I said softly. And in that moment something shifted. The dress wasn't just gone. My image had been rearranged, and I didn't know how far the story had already spread. I stared at the glowing screen one last time, at the smile, at the beaded fabric under studio lights, at the comment about lifting women up. If she was this calculated over a dress, what else had she already prepared? Because the photo wasn't the worst part, not yet. And within hours, I would discover that this wasn't about generosity. It was about replacing me. and I still had no idea how far she was willing to go. I hadn't even changed out of my clothes yet. The house was too quiet. My husband was in the living room staring at nothing. I was in the kitchen pretending to wipe down a counter that didn't need wiping. The photos were still burned into my mind. The smile, the lighting, the caption, blessed, as if generosity had been the story, as if I had willingly stepped aside. My phone rang, unknown number. For a second I considered letting it go to voicemail. I wasn't in the mood for more explanations, more humiliation, more witnesses. It rang again. I answered. Hello? A pause, then a soft, trembling voice. Is this Mrs. My body went rigid. Yes. Silence. Then, it's Maria. Every muscle in my back tightened. Her name sounded different now, not abstract, not distant, real. I'm so sorry, she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. My voice stayed calm, controlled. Didn't know what, Maria? She took a shaky breath. Last night, a friend messaged me. She saw the photo I posted. She asked if I knew that the dress belonged to your daughter, that it was for her wedding.
My throat tightened. I didn't believe it at first, she rushed on. I thought it was gossip, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how your mother-in-law gave it to me, how she said you didn't want it anymore. Didn't want it anymore. She told me, Maria continued, her voice cracking, that you had lost weight and it didn't fit, that you were going to donate it anyway, that I would appreciate it more. I closed my eyes. She said it was a gift, Maria whispered, a thank you for my years of work. There it was. 15 years. 15 years of loyalty reduced to a prop. What happened this morning? I asked quietly. Another long pause. I called her, Maria said. I could hear the fear return in her voice. I asked her if it was true, if the dress was yours, if it was for your daughter's wedding. What did she say? She was quiet for a long time, Maria replied. Then she asked me who told me. That felt right. That felt familiar. She said I shouldn't believe rumors, that I was being ungrateful, that after everything she did for me, paying for alterations, letting me do a photo shoot, I had the nerve to question her. I swallowed. And then? I asked quietly. She told me to delete the post. Of course she did. I said no, Maria whispered. I said if there was nothing wrong, why delete it? There was a sound on her end, like she was trying not to cry. She told me I was embarrassing her. The word hit hard. Embarrassing. She said people were asking questions, that I had no idea the damage I was causing. Damage. To whom? And then, I pressed gently, she told me to come in this afternoon. I already knew. She fired me. Just like that. No warning, no transition, no conversation. 15 years. Gone in one afternoon. For what reason? I asked. She said she couldn't trust someone who questioned her integrity. I almost laughed. Integrity. I tried to explain I wasn't accusing her, I just wanted to understand. But she said if I couldn't be loyal, I couldn't stay. Loyal. That word again. If protecting her version of events meant destroying someone who had served her for 15 years, she didn't hesitate. A silence settled between us. I'm so sorry, Maria said again. I would never have worn it if I had known. I feel sick. I didn't mean to be part of hurting you. I leaned against the counter, and for the first time since this began, I felt something different. Not just anger, recognition. She had used Maria the same way she used everyone else. As long as they played their role, they were valuable. The moment they questioned her, replaceable. It wasn't your fault, I said finally. I should have known something was wrong. She was too generous. Yes, that was the word. Too generous. Where are you now? I asked. At my sister's, she said quietly. I didn't want to go back there. Back there. I understood that feeling more than she realized. We stayed on the phone for a few more minutes. Not as enemies, not even as strangers, just two women who'd finally realized they'd been standing on the same side of something. When the call ended, I stood there for a long time, staring at nothing. My husband came into the kitchen. Who was that? I said. Maria. He went still. She's been fired, I added. His face changed, not confusion this time. Something darker, I continued quietly. She chose this. She chose protecting her image over 15 years of loyalty. He ran a hand down his face. That's not just cruel, he said. That's calculated. Yes, that was the word I hadn't wanted to use. Calculated. I looked down at my phone. If she was willing to erase 15 years that easily, what would she do to protect herself from me? Because this was no longer about a dress. It was about exposure. And she had just proven something terrifying. When cornered, she didn't apologize. She eliminated. And I had no idea what she would do next. The calls started the next afternoon. Not all at once, not dramatic, just enough to feel coordinated. The first was from my husband's aunt, the one who usually stayed neutral in everything. Sweetheart, she said carefully, is it true you're attacking Maria? I went cold. Excuse me? There was hesitation on the other end. Your mother-in-law said Maria's being harassed, that she's devastated, that you're blaming her publicly. Publicly. I hadn't said a word. I spoke to Maria yesterday, I said evenly. A pause. That's not what your mother-in-law told us. Of course it wasn't. What did she say? I asked. Another pause, longer this time. She said you embarrassed her, that you're spreading lies about her generosity, that Maria is caught in the middle and feels threatened. Threatened? The woman she had fired. I almost laughed. She fired her yesterday afternoon. Silence. She what? She fired her yesterday afternoon. That part apparently hadn't made it into the official version. My aunt-in-law exhaled slowly. That's not what we were told. Of course not. Within 2 hours, 3 more calls came in. Different relatives, same tone. Confusion disguised as concern. She said you're trying to ruin her reputation. She said you're twisting the story. She said you've always resented her. The pattern was clear. She wasn't denying what happened. She was reframing it. And she was moving fast. By that evening, my husband's phone started ringing too. He stepped outside to take one of the calls. I watched him through the window as he paced. At one point, I saw his shoulders stiffen. Then he stopped walking entirely. When he came back inside, his jaw was tight. She's telling people you demanded the dress back. I blinked. What? She's saying Maria misunderstood and that you panicked, that she called her screaming, that she had to protect her employee. Protect. The irony was suffocating. And? I asked. He didn't hesitate this time. I told them the truth. What truth? I asked quietly. That you didn't know the dress was gone until you went looking for it, that she never asked you, that Maria called you, not the other way around. I held his gaze. And? He didn't hesitate this time, and that my mother fired her to shut her up. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was clear. He had crossed something. That night, another message came through. This time, it was from his cousin. "She's saying you embarrassed her in front of the family, that you've been trying to turn everyone against her since the wedding planning." Wedding planning. So now this wasn't about the dress. It was about positioning, about painting me as unstable, dramatic, resentful. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen. "How many people have already chosen her side?" I whispered. My husband didn't answer immediately. "Some," he said finally. "Easier to believe the woman who has always controlled the narrative. Easier than admitting they watched her humiliate me."
The next morning, Maria texted me. Short message. "She's telling people I misunderstood everything, that she never fired me, that I left." There it was. She was rewriting all of it. Not aggressively, not loudly, just enough to blur the lines. I stared at the message for a long time. If this had been an accident, she would have apologized. If this had been impulsive, she would have tried to fix it. Instead, she was mobilizing, calling relatives, framing the story, protecting her image at any cost, even if that cost was Maria, even if that cost was me. "She's not afraid," I said quietly. My husband looked at me. "She's confident." Confident in what? That she's untouchable. And that realization unsettled me more than anything else, because people who believe they're untouchable don't stop, they escalate. Later that afternoon, his sister called, not frantic, not accusatory, just tired. "She's been on the phone all day," she said, calling everyone, telling them she's heartbroken. "Heartbroken?" I repeated. "Yes, apparently you humiliated her. Apparently you're trying to divide the family." I closed my eyes. Divide the family over a dress she stole. "She didn't expect Maria to talk," my sister-in-law added quietly. That made me open my eyes. "What do you mean?" "She's furious the post stayed up. She thought deleting it would erase the whole thing." Erase, that word again. "She underestimated you," she said. I let out a slow breath. "No," I replied softly, "she underestimated Maria. And maybe that was the real mistake. Not giving the dress away, not firing her, but assuming everyone would stay silent." That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something with uncomfortable clarity. She wasn't reacting emotionally. She was defending territory, reputation, control. And if she was willing to distort the truth this easily, how far would she go if she felt cornered? Because now it wasn't just about a dress. It was about credibility. And once someone starts rewriting reality to survive, they don't stop halfway. They double down. And something told me this was only the beginning. There were 12 days left until the wedding. 12 days, and instead of thinking about flowers or music, I was replaying 25 years of small humiliations in my head. It wasn't the dress. It never had been. It was the pattern. That night, Aaliyah came over. She didn't text first. She didn't ask. She just showed up. When I opened the door, she took one look at my face and said, "She's doing it again, isn't she?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. We sat at the kitchen table in silence for a while, the same kitchen where her grandmother had stood so calmly while telling me I was petty. Aaliyah stared at the countertop like she was assembling something in her mind. "She's calling people," she said finally. I looked up. "How do you know?" "Because Aunt Renee texted me," she replied. "She hopes I'm not caught in the middle." Middle, I almost smiled. There is no middle. There never was. She leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms. "She's done this my whole life." I frowned. "Done what?" She looked at me like I'd just missed something obvious. "She shrinks you."
The words hit harder than I expected. She makes you feel dramatic, overreactive, ungrateful, Aaliyah said. Then she waits for everyone else to agree. I swallowed. You were a child, I said quietly. You shouldn't have been paying attention to that. She let out a dry laugh. I used to hear you crying in the shower. The air left my lungs. You thought I didn't know, she continued softly. You'd turn the water on full blast. I couldn't speak. You always told me she didn't mean it, that she just had a strong personality, that I shouldn't take things personally.
She leaned forward now. But you did. Silence stretched between us. She humiliated you at my high school graduation, Aaliyah said. Remember when she said you were lucky I turned out well? I remembered. She told people you didn't know how to guide me, Aaliyah continued, like she had done most of the work. My chest tightened. I thought if I achieved enough, she whispered, maybe she'd stop treating you like that. That broke something in me. You don't owe her proof, I said firmly. No, she replied, but you owe yourself boundaries. Boundaries. I had spent decades managing her moods, explaining her tone, softening her impact, telling myself it wasn't worth conflict, but I had never asked myself what it was costing. Aaliyah stood up. She's not coming to my wedding. The sentence fell cleanly into the room. No, I said immediately. We are not doing that. Yes, we are. Her voice wasn't emotional. It was steady. This isn't about the dress, she said. It's about 25 years of watching my mother be treated like she's temporary. I closed my eyes. If I let her sit there smiling while you pretend nothing happened, Aaliyah continued, then I'm telling her she was right. Right. Right to wait me out. Right to diminish me. Right to rewrite me. This stops with me, she said. The phrase landed heavy. I looked at her, not as my child, but as the woman she had become. You understand what that means? I asked quietly. Yes, she said. It means people will talk. They already are. She didn't flinch. I'm not afraid of them. I'm tired of her. Tired. I knew that exhaustion, the kind that comes from constantly proving you deserve space. My husband walked in halfway through the conversation. He heard the last sentence. She's not coming, Aaliyah repeated, looking directly at him. He froze. There it was, the moment he would have to choose, between peace and truth, between comfort and consequence. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat down slowly across from us. I won't have her disrespect my wife, he said finally. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was clear. Aaliyah exhaled. I watched something settle in her shoulders. We don't have to make it public, she added. We just don't send the final confirmation. 12 days. Invitations were already out, seating charts almost done. It would not go unnoticed. She will make a scene, I said. Aaliyah met my eyes. She already did. That was true. The only difference now was whether we allowed her a front row seat. Later that night, after Aaliyah left, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. 12 days. If this was the first time she had left evidence, was it an accident or arrogance? No, it wasn't a mistake. She had been so certain I would stay silent that she hadn't even considered the possibility of consequences. She had grown comfortable enough to post, comfortable enough to fire, comfortable enough to call everyone and assume they'd believe her. People like that don't stop when you ask. They stop when the room changes. And for the first time in years, the room was changing. But I didn't yet know how she would react when she realized that. And something told me she wouldn't go quietly.
There were 9 days left until the wedding. 9. And something had shifted. Not louder, quieter, sharper. The chaos didn't explode.
It rearranged itself. Maria texted me 2 days after her call. "Can we meet in person, please?" We chose a small cafe outside the main part of town. Neutral, public, safe. When she walked in, she looked exhausted. Not just tired, unraveled. She sat down slowly and placed her phone on the table between us. "I need you to see this," she said. She unlocked the screen and handed it to me. The messages were from my mother-in-law, time-stamped, the same night the photos went up. The first one read, "Delete the post immediately." Maria had responded politely, "Is something wrong?" The reply came fast. "You don't need to ask questions, just remove it." There was a pause in the thread. Then another message. "You are embarrassing me." And finally, "If you don't take it down, don't bother coming tomorrow." The next morning, it was simple. You are no longer needed. 15 years of work ended in 4 words. I kept scrolling. There were more. Remember who helped you all these years. Don't forget how replaceable people are. Replaceable. Maria's voice trembled. "She said I betrayed her," she whispered. "She said I was ungrateful." I looked up at her. "You didn't betray anyone." "She was scared," Maria said quietly. "Not of losing me, of losing control of the story." That was it. Not generosity, not charity. Control. My mother-in-law hadn't panicked because the truth hurt her. She panicked because the truth was visible, and visible things can't be rewritten. I didn't make a post. I didn't leave a comment. I didn't defend myself publicly. Instead, I sent 3 screenshots. No captions, no accusations, just the evidence. One to my father-in-law, one to Aunt Renee, the woman everyone listens to, and one to my husband's older cousin, the one who remembers everything. Then I put my phone down. Silence is louder when the right people are listening. The shift was subtle, but it was real. Aunt Renee texted me 2 hours later. I didn't know it had gone that far. My father-in-law didn't respond, but he stopped defending her. And my husband's older cousin sent one sentence. That wasn't generous. That was strategic. Strategic. Finally, someone said it. 3 days later, my father-in-law showed up at our door. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. He didn't step inside right away. He just stood there and said, "Is there more I don't know?" I held his gaze. "There's always more," I replied. He nodded slowly. For the first time in years, he didn't try to explain her. He didn't say she meant well. He didn't soften it. He just absorbed it. And that silence from him mattered. Meanwhile, the wedding was getting closer. 7 days left. My phone buzzed. It was Aaliyah. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "She called me," she said. My chest tightened. "And?" There was a pause. Then my daughter answered. I told her she humiliated herself. I didn't speak. She said she'll see us at the wedding. My pulse slowed. We had not confirmed her attendance. We had not sent her final details. We had not spoken to her directly in days. She said no one can stop her from attending her granddaughter's wedding. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. Because if she showed up, it wouldn't be to celebrate. It would be to reclaim control. And she still didn't understand something. Control only works when people are afraid to take it back.
There were 7 days left, and for the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for impact. I was preparing for something else. Not confrontation, not revenge. Consequences. Because she was still planning to come, but she didn't yet realize she was walking into a room where she no longer mattered. And that was something she had never experienced before. The morning of the wedding arrived quietly. No chaos, no emergency, no last-minute disaster. Just sunlight slipping through the curtains and the kind of stillness that only comes after you've already fought the real battle. I stood in front of the mirror wearing navy blue instead of olive green. It wasn't the dress I had planned. It wasn't the one I had imagined during those 10 extra shifts. But as I looked at myself, I realized something unexpected. This dress hadn't been touched by her. It carried no interference, no humiliation, no theft. It was mine from beginning to end. When I arrived at the venue, the air felt warm, almost forgiving. Guests moved softly across the garden space, laughter rising in small bursts. Music floated from inside. My daughter stood near the entrance, glowing in white, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found me. "You look beautiful, Mom," she whispered. I smiled. "So do you." There was a question sitting behind her eyes, not about the flowers, not about the ceremony, about her grandmother. I gave her a small nod before she even asked. Let her come. Because something had changed. If she appeared today, it wouldn't be as a force, it would be as a witness, and those are very different roles. The ceremony began. I took Aaliyah's arm. The music swelled. Every step toward the aisle felt steady, measured, real. I didn't scan the crowd for her. I didn't mean to, because halfway down the aisle I felt it. That familiar gaze, sharp, assessing, waiting. She was there, seated 3 rows back, perfect posture, perfect hair, perfect composure, as if none of the last 9 days had happened, as if she hadn't fired a woman of 15 years to protect a lie, as if she hadn't called my daughter to accuse her of humiliation. She had come expecting tension. What she got was indifference. No one turned to acknowledge her. No one shifted uncomfortably. The ceremony continued without disruption. I placed my daughter's hand into her fiancé's, their fingers intertwined. The officiant spoke about permanence, about choosing someone every day. And for the first time in years, I felt something settle in my chest. Not triumph, certainty. When the reception began, the music grew louder. Conversations bloomed around tables. Glasses clinked. She moved through the space carefully, smiling at relatives, pretending nothing had fractured. But something subtle had changed in the room. People were polite, not warm. Conversations didn't stop when she approached. They simply didn't bend toward her either. At one point, she stood near our table, clearly waiting for acknowledgement. My husband nodded once. "Mom." That was it. No apology, no invitation to sit, no deference. She hesitated, then moved on. Later, during the speeches, Aaliyah surprised me. She asked for the microphone. "I want to thank my mother," she said, her voice steady but emotional, "for showing me what strength looks like, for teaching me that love doesn't shrink itself to make other people comfortable." There was applause. I didn't look at her grandmother. I didn't have to. When the music started again, my husband held out his hand. "Dance with me." We stepped onto the floor. It wasn't choreographed. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple and joyful and imperfect. And as we turned slowly beneath the lights, I saw her standing at the edge of the dance floor, watching. Not furious, not victorious, just displaced. For the first time in decades, she was present in a room she did not control. The evening went on, laughter grew louder, the newlyweds disappeared into their own world. Photographs were taken, toasts were made. She stayed until the very end. No scene, no confrontation, just observation. And when she finally walked toward the exit, she paused near me. "I hope you're happy," she said quietly. I met her eyes. "I am." She searched my face for something, anger, perhaps, or proof that she still mattered in this equation. She didn't find it. She left without another word, and as the doors closed behind her, I realized something simple and irreversible. She had come expecting to reclaim a narrative. Instead, she witnessed a family that no longer revolved around her approval. The dress never came back. The apology never came either. But that night, under soft lights and steady music, something far more important returned to me. My place. And for the first time in years, I understood this clearly. She could attend, she could observe, she could even sit in the front row. But she no longer decided who was temporary, and she never would again. 6 months passed, not dramatically, not loudly, just steadily. Life didn't explode after the wedding. It settled, and sometimes that's a far more powerful ending. At first, there was silence, not punishment, not exile, just distance. She didn't call as often. When she did, her voice sounded measured, almost rehearsed, careful with tone, careful with wording. The family gatherings changed too. She still attended, but something invisible had shifted. Conversations no longer paused for her approval. Plans weren't adjusted around her preferences. Decisions weren't run past her for validation. She would speak, and people would listen politely, but the room no longer tilted in her direction. Authority doesn't disappear with an argument. It disappears when people stop responding to it. My father-in-law began sitting closer to us at events, not defensively, not dramatically, just closer. He asked me about work once, directly, looked at me when I answered, stayed engaged. It was a small thing, but small things had always been her language. Now they were becoming mine. Maria found another job, better pay, better treatment. She sent me a short message one afternoon. I didn't lose anything. I escaped. We never became close friends. We didn't need to. What we shared wasn't intimacy. It was clarity. And clarity is sometimes more powerful than closeness. My husband changed too. Not overnight, not with speeches, but consistently. When his mother made subtle comments, he didn't soften them anymore. When she tried to insert doubt, he redirected the conversation calmly. When she said, "You've changed," he answered, "I've grown." That word unsettled her more than anger ever could. Grown. Because growth means movement, and movement means she was no longer the center. One afternoon, she asked to meet me alone. Public place, neutral ground. I agreed. Not because I needed closure, but because I was no longer afraid of the conversation. She arrived dressed impeccably, as always, composed, controlled. But there was something different in her eyes, less certainty. She said carefully, "I suppose things are different now." "Yes," I replied. She folded her hands on the table. "I never meant to lose my place." There it was. Not an apology, a confession. "I didn't take your place, I took mine." She held my gaze for a long moment.
I thought it would pass, she admitted. I thought he would come back. The word hung between us. Back. Back to what? Back to dependence? Back to deference? Back to her? He didn't leave you, I said evenly. He just built something of his own. She looked down then, not defeated, just aware. The dress was never about fabric, she said quietly. No, I agreed. Silence settled over the table. For the first time in years, it didn't feel tense. It felt balanced. When we stood to leave, she hesitated. You're not temporary, she said finally. It wasn't warm, it wasn't tender, but it was real. And sometimes reality is the only apology you're ever going to get. Months turned into a year. The tension never vanished completely. Some patterns run deep. But the control never returned. She no longer spoke in hypotheticals about my absence. She no longer framed our life as a phase. And most importantly, my son grew up watching his parents operate as a unit, not as something waiting to collapse. I used to think prominence had to be proven, defended, earned. I was wrong. Permanence is quiet. It shows up every day and refuses to disappear. The olive green dress never came back. I don't know what happened to it, and I don't need to, because what she tried to take wasn't fabric, it was position. And position isn't stolen, it's surrendered. I stopped surrendering, and she stopped assuming. And somewhere in that shift, the narrative changed. Not loudly, not violently, but permanently. She once believed time would erase me. Instead, time exposed her. And in the end, I didn't win. I remained. And that was enough. There are more stories like this, real stories about boundaries, quiet strength, and reclaiming your place, waiting for you here. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one.